Hi, I'm Scott for ediblemusic.com. Imagine a song. In your head, it sounds perfectly recorded. Everything fits together well. Everything is in tune. The tone is just right. It's perfect. It's pristine. Now imagine that song as it's actually recorded. Maybe there's some mouth noises from the vocalist. The musicians have some noise recorded from handling their instruments. Maybe there's some rustling in the background. And then as it's edited, there might be some digital crackling and popping that comes up. Then as it's mixed, there might be some instabilities that are produced by compression and other processing effects. These are artifacts. Think about artifacts in relation to the word artificial, something that is crafted or manufactured. It's a product of some process that has made it. A sculpture takes shape from a stone, and the sculptor chisels and grinds away at it to produce the sculpture. It's similar to in music, where we have a song and then it goes through a process of recording and editing and mixing and mastering in order to produce the product. But all of these processes can produce artifacts along the way. On its own, an artifact doesn't have any judged qualities. It's neither good nor bad, but in the music studio, we try to avoid them because they impact the fidelity of the recording to the original material of the song. Artifacts in the studio can be produced when we're recording by mouth noises, handling noises, fret noises on the instrument, from maybe cables that aren't working properly, inputs and interfaces that aren't working properly, that will produce either digital clicks or atmospheric interference. Both of those are artifacts, just of different forms, different kinds. They can be produced when you're editing or warping or tuning a track because there's a computer algorithm that's trying to manage the sampling and upsampling or downsampling of a digital file, and that can produce some degradation or some erosion to the sound of that original file. Those of us who have a CD collection that maybe they don't know what to do with now will be familiar with this. When you're listening to a scratched or a dirty CD and you get either that skipping or the little digital tick, tick, tick that comes up, that's an artifact produced during the output process. In the music studio, then, they're perceived as defects, unwanted, unmusical sounds that interfere with the music. I think after you've tried to do a whole bunch of EQ to fix a sound, only for it to sound pinched or smeared or unstable, that's an artifact of the EQing process that has interfered with the musicality of the track. In the studio, then, there are different kinds of artifacts that will be produced in different stages of making a song. In the recording stage, it can be the microphone captures some mouth noises or some fret noises on the instrument, handling noises from the instrument, room noises that are captured surrounding the recording. These are not intended to be part of the song. Breaths and mouth noises aren't written into the arrangement of the song, but they are an artifact that arise when you're recording them. Then in the editing and tuning process, the warping that goes on, the conversion that goes on, that can also produce a different kind of artifact, a digital artifact, like digital pops and crackles that you want to avoid. Same with in mixing. If you're trying to work a compressor too hard and it starts to cause the sound to be smeared or just to wobble around a lot, that's also an artifact of the compression process. So through all of these, that's the key to keep in your mind, is that an artifact is the product of some process, whether it's the recording process, the editing process, or the mixing process. There are different artifacts that will arise in each of those. Here's how to deal with them. If they're captured in the recording, you could edit out the breaths or the noises that might arise, or you could just turn them down. And the workstation that you're using will actually help you out with this a little bit. You'll notice probably that there will be these very short fades applied at the edges of clips, and this is to prevent that digital popping or clicking sound that can happen when the computer is trying to read the file from the hard drive and then transfer it into a different sample rate or try to output it. Those things are really common, and so workstations will often by default have these very, very quick little fades that you won't even really notice, but it helps to protect us from the potential artifacts that can be produced when we're working with music in a digital platform. But if you're editing a project and piecing different takes together, sometimes those little digital pops and crackles might come up, usually because the computer is trying to read the file at a point where the sound wave is active. So do your cuts either between words or musical phrases at points where the sound wave is just at zero, is neutral. If you do your edits at points where the sound wave is at zero, it'll keep you safe from those digital pops and clicks. In the editing process, if you're warping or tuning a sound, that process will cause some transformation to the sound file that's being read by the computer. So that will also produce some digital artifacts. So just make sure to apply the correct algorithm that sounds the cleanest or sounds the best to the track that you're working on. The same can be said for analog and digital conversion, changing sample rates, or audio file compression. For example, a WAV file will sound different from a compressed MP3 that's at 128 kilobytes or so, because that compression process has to change the sound of the original file. Now you know there is a kind of artifact that we want to avoid, those digital clicks and pops that poke out of the song. When you hear those, you'll want to take care of them, and you will notice them when they're there. If they're not there, great. But there are artifacts that might be useful. Think about lo-fi music or glitch music or bit crushers, auto-tune, of course. These are processes that produce artifacts like vinyl crackling or downsampling that are then made use of in a musical way. They don't take away from the song. They actually contribute to the musicality and the tone of the song, despite the fact that they are introducing artifacts to that original idea of the song. The song as written doesn't include mouth noises or room noises or the sound of birds or the weather, but the recording does, and sometimes you want them. Have fun.